A few weeks ago, Pastor Kim spoke about the need for patience. Today, I'm going to preach on the need for wisdom. And this meme I came across just this past week is a good example of why we need both in our lives. Now, a professor of mine, Dr. Leah Shade, once gave an outdoor sermon on Earth Day in which she said she was preaching directly to all the animals and the plants and the rest of nature that was gathered in that space. But since the members of her church were also there, and because she thought they could learn from the lesson, she allowed them to listen in. And so today on Christian Education Sunday, I'm here preaching directly to our youth and our children who are streaming with us right now or listening remotely at some other point. But because Christian education is something that encompasses all different ages, and because we're all really lifelong learners, I guess we can let the adults listen in too. Now, as I was writing this sermon, I began thinking about my favorite Disney movie of all time. And I don't know about you, but do you have a Disney movie you can just watch over and over and over without getting tired of it? I know for me there's some stiff competition like The Lion King and The Princess and the Frog and Hercules. But if I had to pick just one, I think I would go with Aladdin. I mean, it has these great chase sequences and fantastic music that gets stuck in your head, not to mention one of the greatest movie characters of all time, Robin Williams' Genie. And if you've seen it, you know there's a scene partway through the movie where the genie lays out the rules for Aladdin. He says you get 3 wishes, but you're not allowed to kill anyone, bring anyone back to life, or make anyone fall in love with you. And as powerful as the genie is, life is actually pretty tough for him because he says he's given phenomenal cosmic power, but itty-bitty living space. You see, as powerful as he is, the only thing that could free him from an eternity of living inside the lamp is for someone to use their own wish to free him. And Aladdin says, I'll do that. I'll use my last wish to free you. And Genie doesn't believe him, because every person who's rubbed that lamp, he's seen the way all their hopes and their wants and their desires ended up being about themselves instead of anybody else. And now today, the story we just heard a little while ago that Haley read to us is a little bit like this story of Aladdin. It features a young man who's also put in the position of making a very tough wish. It's the story of Solomon, whose dad was the great King David. Now, this is the same David who beat the giant Goliath with a stone when he was a little kid. I'm sure you remember that story. Well, anyway, David's been king for about 40 years, and he's close to death, so he names Solomon as the next king in line. And when Solomon becomes king, he gets right to work. He marries the Pharaoh's daughter. He begins construction on a part of the palace and a wall and a temple where people can worship God. I mean, this is a busy guy. He's trying to figure it all out. And so Solomon is up on a high special place called Gibeon, and he's making offerings to God. And that night, Solomon has a dream where God comes to him. And God says, Solomon, ask me for anything you'd like. Well, if you had just been put in charge of a whole bunch of people, what might you wish for? Maybe you'd wish for wealth or power or an army to protect you. That might come in handy. Well, Solomon says, God, I'm pretty young. I'm practically just a kid. And I don't know how to lead a whole bunch of people. So I guess my wish would be wisdom to know right from wrong and to know how to govern this great people of yours, this people that is so many I couldn't even possibly count it. And God says, Solomon, because you have wished for something for others and not just yourself, I will grant your wish. And not only that, you will not only be the wisest king who ever lived, but there will never be another like you afterwards. Wow. Well, what does this word wisdom really mean? This word wisdom that Solomon asked for. The Bibles we have at our church describe wisdom as an understanding mind. But when I think about using my head, I think more about knowledge, right? You go to school to gain more knowledge. But other versions of the Bible describe wisdom as a discerning heart or a God-listening heart. I really like that second one. Wisdom is having a God-listening heart. So today's lesson is really about the difference between being head smart and being heart smart. You see, the knowledge you gain from all the different classes they teach you in school is definitely important because it helps inform your view of the world around you. But make sure that the wisdom of your heart factors in as well. So I might ask my teachers, teach me the science behind climate change and behind disease so I can better understand these things. But let my heart ask how those things affect people so I can do my part to make a difference. I might say, teach me the history of our country and other countries around the world so I can try to avoid the mistakes that others have made in the past. But let my heart ask whose stories our textbooks are leaving out so I can have a better idea of how history really played out. I might say, teach me the complexities of the English language so I can better read and write. But let my heart help me find the words to speak out for those who are being ignored. You've probably heard a lot of us adults arguing lately about all kinds of facts. We're arguing over whether or not we should wear masks. We're arguing over the best way to go back to school. A lot of adults are even arguing if racism is still an issue today. Facts can change as we learn new information. And you know, facts can be downright confusing sometimes. We're always just trying to figure out things based on what we know. But there's one thing that's unchanging, and that's the fact that God calls us to look out for the good of everyone, not just ourselves. The same thing that Solomon wanted, and the same thing God wanted in this story, is the very same thing we should all want. You know, when I was your age and I was in Sunday school and youth group, I remember people always spoke about us as being the future of the church. They'd say that someday we'd be the ones making all the decisions and deciding the direction that the church would head in. Even outside of the church, haven't you heard people say, the future is in your hands? Well, one thing I've come to realize is that while adults are talking about the future, the present is already in your hands. Young people aren't waiting to figure out how they'll shape the world. You're shaping it as we speak. You're speaking out against violence in your schools and people being treated unfairly because of the color of their skin or who they choose to love. And that must seem like a lot to handle. Maybe you're thinking, how can I possibly change it all? Or as young Solomon thought in our story, how can I possibly know how to help all these people? Well, that's your brain talking. Your brain can only take you as far as the information you put in it. And when we think about how much there possibly is to know about our world, about our universe, regardless of how old or how young we are, we're all basically beginners. So if you're watching this, no matter the age, it's okay to admit you don't have all the answers. We live in an information age, so keep questioning and learning new things. But remember to trust and listen to that God-listening heart of yours. The one that takes in all this new knowledge your brain receives and simply asks, God, help me know right from wrong, so I can look out for all my neighbors the same way that you look out for me. Amen.